Okay, all right. We'll get started. Anyway, we are recording, so in case anybody misses it, they can watch it on their own time. But yeah, so last two sessions we covered mostly about the fundamental VPC, how we can create VPC, and then we talked a lot about CADR blocks and how we can have the subnets created and how we add route tables, and also how we can have patches applied to the EC2 instances that are created in the private subnet using internet gateway. And then we talked about a bastion host where from everybody can log into, and from there you can reach to the instances that are installed, that are provisioned in the private subnet. So that is about it. But in this session we talk something more about VPC endpoints and endpoint services. So this is where we can talk about where, as you know, like any typical enterprise applications, part of like more than 2, 3, 4 applications or components, they work together, and all those each component may be developed by a different company altogether, or sometimes different software groups they work, and obviously the application or the component deployment requires its own network, and sometimes they don't want any other EC2 instances or any other servers. If you talk in a legacy terms, any other servers have access to their resources, right? So usually it is very common that each component requirement could be each component will have its own subnet where the application will be deployed, and then finally they will open up a port, like say if it is a application enterprise kind of application and having a web interface, then they open a port 8080 and 443 for a HTTPS communication. Then they open up certain particular listed IP addresses, so that only those particular IP addresses can access the particular component. So that is how typically any basic enterprise application works. And also if we are working on for a tier 1 customer, usually the tier 1 customers will have so many vendors, where each vendor could be a different software company itself. So they develop and they deploy their application in their own VPC. So definitely for this kind of requirement, it's very common that how we can establish a connection between one VPC and another VPC. So basically we will have to establish a secure channel or an interface between VPCs, and also sometimes we'll have to also talk from VPC to on-premise network. Like say they have some mission critical data, they don't want that data to be put in a public cloud. For that purpose, any software company, or they may run their mission critical data in their on-premise network, but they want to open a secure tunnel to the front-ending services which are deployed in the AWS. So how we can do that? So that is what we're going to talk about in this session. So one is that VPC endpoint. VPC endpoint is a feature in AWS where like we do have a lot of services, managed services in AWS. To talk about managed services, we have, let me take you to the slide number 4 first, where you see there are so many managed services like S3 and RDS, and there are a lot of managed services we have. And for some reason, you are developing an application which requires some of these services to be used, and you need to have access to those services, which means your VPC has to go to the public route to access the S3 bucket. Let's say Amazon S3 bucket is hosted obviously in the Amazon network, and Amazon it will have its own VPC, and they define the services there, and they will have a public interface. so that everybody from the internet can access the S3 bucket, right? That is how, let's say, if I go to my S3 bucket here, which I have, which means if you look at the URL, I'm accessing the S3 bucket using a HTTP URL, HTTPS URL. That means they have deployed their S3 bucket service in their own internal network, and they have exposed a publicly accessible URL to the every other AWS customers, right? Which means if you look at the diagram here, anybody in our own VPC, if we want to make use of any S3 bucket or any other like RDS, we have RDS is a relational database service in AWS we have. So if we want to have access to that, definitely we'll have to go through internet route. I mean, the private servers which we deploy in the private subnet requires to access the S3 service or RDS service. We'll have to have a NAT gateway through which the private instances can talk to any other publicly accessible URLs, right? So that is how typically we do it. Not typically, I mean, that is how the concept is. But the problem here is when we do use with the NAT gateway, as you know, it is going to be charged. NAT gateway is chargeable, and that is one problem. That means your cost for the solution is getting high because you need your private EC2 instances, which are deployed in the private subnet, need to have access to the S3 bucket, which is publicly available. For that, you need to have a NAT gateway so that your private instances can talk to publicly accessible URLs and get the data out of it. But as you know, the NAT gateway is a chargeable, and as the usage is chargeable, that means your solution, you are ending up paying an extra money for that. That is number one. And number two is, since your application is in the AWS and also you're trying to access AWS service only, I mean, S3 bucket is also a AWS service, AWS managed service provided by Amazon. You don't need to go to internet route. If there is a dedicated internal network route, that is more optimized way of accessing these S3 buckets, correct? Let me know if anybody do it, but if there is a optimized way of connecting the S3 bucket or any managed services, this is how we do it. Basically, Amazon providing endpoints like this for all the managed services. They are hosting it, and they are able to, you can create a interface endpoint or a gateway endpoint. Basically, a gateway endpoint is something they have started with when they started this concept, but later on they realized it could be done with the single interface, network interface. Then all the new services that are coming in now, they are releasing interface endpoint. But if you look at this on the gateway endpoint, S3 and DynamoDB are the two very first endpoints Amazon has introduced. That's why that time they didn't discover the interface endpoint technology, so they have named it as gateway endpoints. But all the new services now they are introducing, they are providing with an interface endpoint. So what happens with the interface endpoint is, when any instances which are in your private subnet, they do not need any NAT gateway or internet gateway to access the services like such as S3 or RDS or any other services. You just need to create an endpoint with Amazon S3. Then that will add a route into your subnet route table. From there, you will be able to access the files. So let's say in our case, you will be able to access files from the S3 bucket. So let me show you that in a minute. So let me show you my VPC instance. take my VPC. I see the very less audience. I see only Verma today.
Hey, Hari.
Yeah, so I see, I mean, we have very less audience. I don't know, we want to continue it or we will put it in the next session. I mean, it's only 2. What do you think? So do we continue? Because I see only 2 audience, so I don't see. Yeah. Hello. Hello.
Hari,
Yeah, I'm not able to hear you properly, Verma.
sorry, you can continue. Maybe 20, 30 minutes.
Okay.
Then we can skip the next.
Okay, sure. Okay, so yeah, so
you're saying that VPC endpoints. That means each and every assume S3 bucket, I need to create an endpoint for that.
I'm sorry, but I'm not able to hear you properly, Verma. I'm not sure you connected through a phone or your laptop, but I'm not able to hear you. Yeah.
That's okay. You can continue. How about now? Is it okay?
Now it is good. Yeah, yeah. What was your question?
So what I understand, VPC endpoints, the concept is to access from private network to the public, which is S3 bucket. You need a network. So you are saying that for S3 bucket, you need to create an endpoint so that we can go through that endpoint for each public access. So for let's assume, okay, even SNS is a public, right? So for that also we need an endpoint to configure that.
Yes, actually SNS is also an endpoint, right? You see here, and they do have an interface endpoint for that. So the main advantage with this VPC endpoint is, I mean, the concept why VPC endpoint came is for 2 things. One is that cost optimization. Cost optimization means you need not to end up paying money for your NAT gateway, right?
Okay.
Otherwise, let's say we don't have VPC endpoints at all. Then when you design your network VPC and all your instances which are in private subnet, they require some or the other S3 service or SNS service or SQS service or a DynamoDB RDS service, then that means the EC2 instances should have a route which can go beyond your VPC network, right? Your VPC is your own private network, but it has to go out of your network and reach to the S3 service or a DynamoDB or SNS, right? For that, we should have a NAT gateway. Without NAT gateway, there is no way we can talk to S3 service or any other service, right? So what is happening with that kind of architecture is your deployment is you are paying money for your NAT gateway. Without NAT gateway, your solution will not work, right? That is one thing. That is number one. That means your solution is not cost effective. And the second thing is the route. I mean, the EC2 instances that are in your private subnet, they are going through the internet route. That means they're going all the way out of your Amazon network. Then they're reaching to the internet. I mean, whatever the public internet routes are. Then it is again reaching to Amazon S3. Then it is coming back to your PC, right? The route is long route. That means your application is not performance oriented, or I mean your performance is also hitting with the NAT gateway approach, right? So one is cost, second thing is performance. To improve both cost and performance, what Amazon did is they are coming up with a concept called endpoints. Using endpoints, you don't need to have any NAT instance to reach, say, let's say your server requires S3 only and it does not need any internet, then you don't need a NAT gateway. You just need a S3 endpoint, gateway endpoint. That's it. You will be able to access it. And that route will be a private route. I mean, that will be within the Amazon network only, right? So your cost is minimized and your performance is also improved. So, I mean, this is a very valid, I don't know if you already working, if anyone of you already working in your work, you have VPCs, go back and check if you really need NAT gateway in your deployment. Because I don't think NAT gateway is very much required for continuously, but I agree, but at the initial deployment, you may, some of the instances require some patch updates, or like say I'm installing a Java or Tomcat, I need internet. But once these applications are installed, I can remove the NAT gateway and shut down the NAT gateway so that I will not be ending up paying the money, right? So that is the main use case for these endpoints.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Right. So yeah, so now what we will do is we will, I have my VPC. I have created a backend VPC where I have some subnets. First, and also I have my, I have 4 subnets here in my VPC. And then I have route table. I have my private route table where I have my both private subnets in this route table where I don't have a public route, but I have a NAT gateway installed because I will be able to access the, I will be able to access my internet because I will be running some Java installation and I will be running some Tomcat installation, which means my EC2 instance will download Java from internet and install it, and then my EC2 instance will download Tomcat from internet and install it. So that's why I need NAT gateway for this. But later on, I will remove the NAT gateway and then I will show you, I will create an endpoint. Later on, I will show you how we cannot access S3 without the NAT gateway. Then we will create an endpoint for S3 and I will show how we can access it. Okay. Let me start a EC2 instance first. So here I am launching in my my VPC. I will go slow because I think if you understand it very well, you will have a very good understanding in your, you will be on top of your network also. But for now, I'm creating this in the public subnet. And let me have an IP address because my public subnet by default, like I mentioned in the last session, if you look at my public subnet, whenever I'm creating it, I have disabled assigning a public IP to my instances. That's why it's saying subnet settings is having disabled. But when I'm creating an instance, I can enable it so that I get a public IP. And also, if you remember, I was talking something about the roles, IAM role, because if you remember, we one of the session we talked about EC2 instances where and IAM, where from my EC2 instance, I'm trying to access S3 bucket. I had to configure the user ID credentials. I had to create one user in IAM. Then I had to use my secure ID and token to access the S3 bucket. And then I told it is not the right way to do it because if somebody can hack your credentials, they can access your S3 bucket or your content from any other EC2 instance also. But rather, what I did is I have created a role, IAM role in my IAM service, where for that role I have assigned a S3 full access. That means this EC2 instance can access S3 buckets. It can create files in the under S3 bucket, and it can read. So I'm assigning that particular role here. So even if you are creating your EC2 instances for at your work, this is the way you have to provide the access to the EC2 instance, not through credentials. Okay. Then on the advanced part, what I am doing is I do have a startup script. If you look at my script, what I'm doing, I'm providing a bootstrap script to my EC2 instance. What it does, as soon as the instance is spinned up, it will download the Java file from internet, right? And install Java. Then I'm configuring the Tomcat. I'm creating a Tomcat user and then downloading the Tomcat application server, installing it. Then I have a web application developed and put it in my S3 bucket. Let me show you that. So I have some files like a war file. If you look at my war file, this is a calculator web application I developed and put it in here, and also some Tomcat configuration. I'm using it for installation. So what this particular script does is, as soon as the Java and Tomcat is installed, it will download the war file and puts into web apps folder, and it starts the Tomcat server so that the calculator web application is up, right? So let me start this, then we will run through some other things. Because the reason I am trying to explain the services, this service, we will be using it as one of the endpoint so that other VPCs can access this service. That's why I'm trying to explain what the service is about. So let me go back to my EC2 screen. So we may want to, we will have, definitely takes 1 or 2 sessions, but I'm trying to go slow so that you know what I'm trying to do, because this involves like end-to-end application deployment. And as you know, like people take 2 months or 2.5 months. So I don't want to put it in a half an hour, right? So I'm selecting my VPC and then my subnet. Then I want a public IP address, so I'm setting it as enable. And then I want my EC2 instance to access S3 bucket, so I'm selecting that role, assigning that particular role to this EC2 instance. Then I want Java and Tomcat to be installed, and then my war to be deployed here. So I am giving this bootstrap script, which we covered in the EC2 instance here, right? So next is storage. I don't want any storage. Just I'm providing a public server service, and I want to open up the ports SSH port and HTTP 808 port, 8080 port, and so that I will be able to test my service. So I am assigning a DMZ security group, which I have already created, and these are the rules I have in my security group. Then I have already have a private key with me, so I'm selecting that key pair so that the public key will be put on that EC2 instance. So let's give some time. What it does is it as soon as it spins up, it downloads the Java and downloads the Tomcat and installs it and have my application up here. Let's see, once we get the IP address, we will try to invoke my web service. Because the reason I'm explaining this is, once I explain my application better, then you understand how the VPC endpoint comes into picture, all those details. Okay, so I will give some more time because web application deployment might take some time, right? But let me start writing the URL. So this is the public IP address, and my application is deployed in the 8080 port, and then my application name is Calci, and then my URL is add. I am providing a calculator application which is hosted in the web. Okay, then it takes two parameters. I'm passing like number 1 as 1 and number 2 as 34. Let's see if it comes up. Yeah, so it came up. You see it, right? So we just spinned up instance here, and we have provided the installation script. What it did is it automatically came up, and my web application is working. So the reason I did a very simple web application is because in this session I don't want to focus too much on the application development, but you know, right? If you follow the session, you know how if you have your web application with you, you should be able to deploy your application and launch it, right? So now let me go to the SSH terminal port, and I will access S3 bucket because I have assigned a S3 bucket role into this EC2 instance, so I should be able to access S3 bucket. So let me SSH. Let me SSH to the server. As I told, I have my PEM file. So I am connected now, right? So if you look at the EC2 instance where I placed, it was put in a public subnet. Public subnet has the route to the internet. So I will be able to access my S3 bucket without any problem, right? So I can see my S3 bucket here. I think we'll have to use, let's use region also, because so let me I just want to show you that it will not work for a private subnet. For that, I'm just trying to use the switch. Let me switch the switch here from I think this is, let me go back and type. US West 2. Mine is US West. I think there is a name. That's what I'm trying to get it exactly. Right. So this guy. Just give me. Usually we don't use the region here, but for private subnet we have to use it. But anyway, let's go there while I get that. But here, as you see, we are able to see the bucket here, right? But now, okay, I'll come back to this later. But now what I'll do is I'll launch another EC2 instance in the private subnet. Okay. So from there, I see I try to access the S3 bucket. I will remove the NAT gateway from my VPC so that that EC2 instance cannot talk to anybody. But then I create a VPC endpoint here. Let me do this as a private subnet here I'm selecting, and I don't want any public IP address here. But I still keep the access so that this EC2 has access to access the S3 buckets. And I copy the same script so that I'm doing multitask because I will also use the same EC2 instance for creating my endpoint service. To name security group. Still, I'm opening all the ports because I have my web application also running, because I will be accessing from my public subnet EC2 instance this service. And key, I use training key pair. And as you see here, in my VPC I still have my internet gateway, NAT gateway in the route, which means when this private instance try to get Java and try to get Tomcat from the internet, it will be able to get it from the internet, and that installs it. Once it installs and service is up, I will remove the NAT gateway because I don't want internet connectivity anymore. That is what I'm trying to show you. Then I will try to access S3 bucket from there, where you will not be able to access it because we don't have NAT gateway anymore. Let me go back to my EC2 instance. So this is my private. So let me see if I can access this service or not. What I do is wget qo http, and this time I'm calling the service which is hosted in the private subnet EC2 instance, right? Just to check my service is up or not. Yeah, so this is up. You see it, right? This IP address is a private. As you see, this is a different EC2 instance, not a publicly accessible EC2 instance, which means this is how typically in the production you do it. You deploy your applications in a private subnet where public cannot access it, but as you can see, the publicly accessible EC2 instance is also within the same VPC. It is able to talk to it. Yeah, right. So now let me connect to the EC2 instance, the private server through SSH. For that, I do need to have my key, and I'm copying my key, the training firm key here, And what I do is I create that private key file. Then I am saving it. Then I give the permissions to the PEM file. Then I am connecting to the private instance. EC2 user, and the IP address is 10.5176, right? Then kp.pem. So I am connecting it. So now I have connected to the private instance, right? So now if I create, I think now I came to a situation where I need that command, but I think there's three. Someone is giving me the command. If somebody is giving me the command, yeah, I think yeah, we got. Okay, so now from the private IP address also I'm able to access it, right? But what I do is now I will remove the NAT gateway from my VPC. So for that, what I do is I go to my VPC again, and I will go to the route table. I go to my private subnet route table. You see both my private subnets are part of this route table. So in this, we have a NAT gateway route defined here. I am editing it, and I have removed it and saved it. So just to confirm, now I don't have NAT gateway in my VPC. And now if I go back to the same terminal from here, if I run the same command, it is timing out because we don't have NAT gateway, which means it is not able to reach to the S3 service, because this particular private EC2 instance does not have a public route, so it is not able to communicate, right? So, but yeah, I think we'll have to set that command. We can't get past to that, because I want to show you how the region is passed. Let me try. Okay, let me try from this here only. But now you see, right? I'm terminating it because it's anyway not going to work. Now I am going back to. I'm exiting from this terminal because I'm going to my public EC2 instance. As you see, I am I came out of the private EC2 instance, and here I try invoking my web service. So my web service is still accessible. As you see, I am trying to call the web service, which is defined in my private subnet, that is still accessible. But the private EC2 instance is not able to access the internet. That means S3 bucket. So here you see it. This is able to access because this particular EC2 instance is in the public subnet, which means the public subnet has a route to internet. That's why this instance is able to access the bucket, right? Any questions? I think I have confused. No? Any questions? Any questions about this settings? Right. Okay, so US West 1. My call, I just want to make sure. Yeah, I think this is what the switch is. So this is the switch we have to use it when we use for VPC endpoint. But let me try the same thing again to connect to my private subnet again. SSH EC2 user at 10.0.5176. So again, I connected to my private instance. Ls, I am passing region because this is what we will have to use when we do the endpoint thing. So now, as you see, it is still not working because it does not have the route. So now I go back to my VPC. I create an endpoint now. So this is how we create endpoint. Just creating an endpoint for S3. So what it does is, as I told at the beginning, all the endpoint services provided by Amazon will be listed here. And there are two types of endpoints. Type is interface, or it could be gateway. Gateway, we have only two types. One is DynamoDB, and there is a S3, right? So I will be selecting as S3 here. So I clicked here for AWS services, and the service could be by another AWS customer can also expose his service. That is also we will cover later. Also, there could be other AWS marketplace where some proprietary services also available. We will be able to search from there also if you know the service details. But for now, we are trying to create an endpoint for one of the AWS service, that is S3 bucket here. Okay, and in which VPC this endpoint will be used. So I am selecting my VPC, backend service VPC here. And as you see, which subnets will be using this endpoint? That's what it is asking here. So here, my private subnets will be requires access to this particular endpoint. So I have selected my route table, which has the private subnets here. Okay. And this particular endpoint has access to all the operations. So which means anybody accessing S3 bucket will have all operations can be done from here. But what we can also do is we can provide a custom policies where you can specify anybody who accesses this endpoint can only view the files, or you can give another endpoint. Anybody who accesses the files using this endpoint service can delete the files. So all that kind of policy or security control can be done here. But for now, I'm giving the full access for the S3 bucket. Okay. So that's it. Endpoint is created now and it is available. So what it did is basically it has created some entries, because I will show you the route table now. If I go to route table and I show you the routes, there is a new route being added here. You see the destination, they have added Amazon.com, the public URL is as the destination, and the target, they created a route where the VPC endpoint, whatever we created, that ID is provided here. So this is very important. So if you have this particular entry and all the instances that are spinned up in these subnets will be able to access the S3 bucket now. Okay. Let me try now. So let me. So here we should be able to access the endpoint now. Wow. Okay. So let me check the settings again. So my EC2 instance where I am in private, that is 10.156. That is where I am in now. And it is in private subnet. So this is in the private subnet, and the route table has the entry, which is good. But why there is no connection now, right? So let me exit and connect it back. AWS
Hey, Hari,
S3.
quick question.
Yeah.
Hey,
Go
this
ahead, go ahead,
VPC
please.
endpoint, right? So what you're trying to do
Mhm.
is to access any public S3 bucket or any public
Mhm.
service provided, you're trying to
Yeah.
access from a private network, right? So that means, how about a different region? So that should be in the same region, the S3 bucket, or different region can also do that. Means both VPC means the S3 bucket should be the same region in order to have the endpoint VPC endpoint access.
No, actually, if you look at the S3, right, S3 does not have any region. It is global. It's a global
It's a
service.
global, but
yeah,
the S3 bucket, if you create it, right, region specific, right?
that is correct. That is, it is created in the US West. So let me see if I am, yeah, I am in the US West. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So both
Yeah, what was the question?
should be in the same region, the VPC and the S3.
Right, right.
Okay.
So let me go back and check the VPC also, it's in the West region or not, right? So the endpoint which we created, let me see. So yeah. So, but as you see, right, here we don't have any region specific things here. But because we are already in the West region, it is showing that particular service endpoints only here to us.
Oh, okay.
Right, but I think let me change from to US East. Okay, and it will automatically change to US East. So it will take care of that. So we need not to worry about it. But yes,
Okay.
you can check your bucket, and accordingly you can check your thing. But in my case, let me see why again I am not able to do it. I should be able to do it. This is how it is created. I can add one more. So there is no harm in creating as many as endpoints. Maybe it is complaining about a public route tables also. It is requiring. Let's check. I'm adding, in this case, I'm adding both my private and subnet, and private subnet and public subnet, both I'm adding. Let's see if that helps us. Let me delete this. And creating a new one. And again, it is showing me the West endpoint. So I am selecting my VPC, but in this case, let me update this rule for both the endpoints. But still, you can see I don't have NAT gateway in my route table that we verified, but we will verify again. So route tables in my default. So the new one is added here, but I don't have a NAT gateway. That means I don't have an internet route here. Which page? Yeah, I think, yeah, it's the US West 2. I think that is where we have our bucket. That's why when I'm trying for West 1, it is not working. But the region where my bucket was, if you look at it, it is in the US West 2. So now I am able to access my bucket here, right? So this is how we can actually minimize cost now, because if you look at my deployment now, I have my own VPC, and I have my own subnets, private and public subnets, and I already have installed my application into my servers, private servers, using NAT gateway. After installation, I have removed my NAT gateway. I'm not using this now, right? As you can see that I don't have my routes here, that means I'm not using it. So I can actually stop this. Let me stop this also so that you understand what I'm talking about. So I completely removed NAT gateway. So I will not be billed for this NAT gateway now, right? But still, I am able to access my bucket, S3 bucket. So this is how what the concept is. We have minimized the cost because we are not paying for NAT gateway, and we also, the performance is also good because the route, the network route, it is going from your VPC to the S3 is within the Amazon network. So obviously it is going to be much better than going through the internet route. So similarly, you can create all the endpoints what we have here, right? So you can, all the endpoints, listed here, you can create, and like say RDS, if you have a DynamoDB installed in your DynamoDB you want to use for your application, you can create a DynamoDB endpoint and have your application components access to the database using an endpoint. So like this, you will be able to save the cost and performance. Okay. So I think if you go back, if you have your working at work, if you have your VPC, you can check and you can save some cost for your company. Okay. I think I will, we are already 8:55. We have 5 more minutes. So I will stop here and I will open for questions. And then in the next session, what I will do is the web service which we have deployed just now, I will create a endpoint service like this. Endpoint service, I create it. I will access this particular service from another AWS account. Right now, I have one AWS account, but what I do is I create the service here. I keep this endpoint service as a producer, service provider, and from another account, I will create the endpoint and I will access this service. I will show that in the next session. So any questions on the endpoint I can take?
Yeah, Hari. So the endpoint is specific to, let's assume, 10x one S3 bucket. So that means one endpoint for one S3 bucket?
No. Endpoint is not specific to buckets. Endpoint is specific to the regions. As you see, right? If you go to here, if you go here, it is actually showing your region name. I mean, for every region, they will create a particular gateway endpoint. And as you are currently in the which region, the corresponding endpoints will be displayed here. So it is not per bucket, it is per region. That is the reason why I was actually initially in my session, I was looking for this switch, because I want to show the region switch so that we can access that link. Because when we are creating it, this itself is telling me US West 2, I should have used it, but I was trying with US West 1. That was the reason why it is not working, right? Yeah, any more questions? So All right. I think what I will do is I will also keep this. I will have this script also uploaded into that shared location. If you want to try it, you can try. I will have this one. I will have the war file, and also I will have the Tomcat file uploaded into the shared location. So you can download this and this. Maybe bucket, you can create your own bucket because you will not be able to create with my name because I already have. S3 buckets are global. So once I have this bucket created here, no one else, any other account guy also cannot be able to create this one. So, but if you let me know if you are changing this bucket name, all you need to do is in the script here, there is a bucket name here. I'm copying it. So you just change your bucket name to your bucket name here and here. These are the two places you change your own bucket name here. So this script should work and have your application running, web application running. So you can do a practice for this. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much for joining. I will schedule the next session where we will talk more about the endpoint service. We will use this as a service and we will show it. Thank you.